Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 150th episode of Talk the Book, the insightful book review program of AP State Council of Higher Education. Today, we delve into the world of classic literature with a timeless masterpiece, A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. But before we get into this literary journey, let me introduce our esteemed book reviewer for this episode, Dr. Mrs. Swathi Koppolu, a distinguished professional with an illustrious career spanning over 14 years in the field of English language. Dr. Koppolu holds a doctoral degree in English language teaching from Andhra University and has contributed significantly in the realms of English language teaching, English language writing skills for tribal students, and Black literature. With several publications in esteemed national and international journals, Dr. Swathi brings a wealth of knowledge and insight to our book review. Currently associated with Anil Neerukonda Institute of Technology and Sciences, she continues to inspire and educate through her work. Now, without further ado, let's delve into the captivating world of A Doll's House as we eagerly await Dr. Swathi Koppolu's enlightening review. Stay tuned and over to Dr. Swathi. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. K. Swathi, currently associated with Anil Neerukonda Institute of Technology and Sciences, Visakhapatnam. And I'm honored to be part of this platform. And I'm fortunate to be given this opportunity to share my comprehensive review and analysis of Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. At the very outset, I would like to thank Professor Reddy, sir, Chairman of APSHE, for initiating such a wonderful program. Thank you, sir. So let me make you walk through this beautiful playwright, A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. When we talk about Henrik Ibsen, a Norwegian playwright, this is basically a drama, a prose playwright written in the 19th century. The very aim of this presentation is to provide an in-depth understanding, the key themes, characters and characterization, realism, dramatic elements of the play. Giving a brief introduction to Henrik Ibsen. Henrik Johan Ibsen was born on March 20th, 1828 in Skien, Norway, and passed away on 23rd May 1906 in Norway. He was the second of 5 children born to Nut Ibsen, a merchant, and his wife, Mariken. His family faced financial struggles during his childhood, which had a lasting impact on his worldview and later influenced his works. Ibsen's interest in the theatre emerged during his youth, and he began writing plays at a very early age. In 1850, he moved to Christiania, now Oslo, to pursue a career in theatre. His works include Catalina, written in 1850, and Burial Mound in 1850. And initially, he was not successful, but these plays helped him lay a groundwork for his later achievement. When we talk about playwrights, theatre was very prominent in 19th century. The only source of entertainment for people then. In this perspective, there were many playwrights who came into existence and were very much into theatre. The very reason for theatre is it became the only source for people to display their interests and ideas. And but whenever we talk about theatre, theatre is a platform to showcase the happenings So we could see whenever we look at any drama, any play, any literary work, they're obviously influenced by their surroundings. When we talk about Ibsen also, we could see in 19th century, Norway was under colonial, and there were many political unrest, many factors like communism, lack of women rights, legal issues that contribute towards the playwrights basically. So in Henrik Ibsen was also influenced by the happenings around him. So in this perspective, he wrote the novel, he wrote the work, The Doll's House. Doll's House is considered to be the initial step towards feministic writings. When we look at the major works of Henrik Ibsen's, A Doll's House in 1879, this is one of Ibsen's most famous work, which marked an era of feministic perspective. It explored the themes of marriage, gender roles, societal expectations in his stories. When we look at the protagonist, Nora Helmer, a woman who realizes her subservient position and seeks liberation. The story runs through unmasking what a woman needs, a quest for identity and liberation. The next work, Hedda Gabler, 1890, another one of Ibsen's masterpieces. Hedda Gabler delves into the complexity of human psyche, particularly focusing on the character of Hedda Gabler, a woman trapped in stifling marriage who resorts to manipulation and control to assert her independence. Even Hedda Gabler is considered to be a pioneer in feministic literature. Ghosts, 1881, also shocked audience when it was first performed due to its unflinching portrayal of taboo subjects such as venereal disease, societal hypocrisy, and the burdens inherited sin within a family. An Enemy of the People in 1882 also tackles the issue of political corruption, true, and the responsibility of individual within the society. The protagonist, Dr. Thomas Stockman, confronts his town's leadership when he discovers that the local baths are contaminated, only to face resistance and condemnation. Peer Gynt, 1867, a poetic and fantastic drama, follows the adventure of its titular characters as he embarks on a journey through various landscapes and encounters numerous characters, reflecting on life, morality, and the search for self-identity. So the Master Builder in 1892 explores the theme of ambition, power, through the character of Halvard Solness, an aging architect who encounters with a young woman named Hilde, disrupts his life and forces him to confront his past. Most of these prominent works by Henrik Ibsen had a profound impact on the development of modern theatre and continued to be studied and worldwide for the depth of their characteristics, psychological insights, and social commentary. When we talk about Norway's political turmoil during that time, it was under the colonial rule and people were at unrest. So during this perspective, Ibsen wanted to invoke a sense of identity among the people. So he penned his novels taking the central theme of pain, suffering, and particularly with women being the protagonist of his novels. When we focus on Doll's House, this Doll's House is basically divided into 3 acts. Act 1 of Doll's House starts with Christmas. The protagonist, Elmer, is decorating her Christmas tree. Here in Act 1, we could see the characters of Nora Helmer and Torvald Helmer being wife and husband, and tension they bear in the name of marriage, and what unfolds in Act 2. So, Act 1, Henrik Ibsen established the seemingly harmonious but superficial world of Hermel's household. Audience are introduced to Nora Helmer, the play's protagonist, as an embodiment of womanhood. Person who is beautifully made, a representation of Victorian women, an archetype of ideal Victorian wife who is playful, charming, loving, devoted to her husband, Torvald Helm. Torvald, portrayed as an affectionate yet patronizing, embodies the societal expectations of masculinity and paternalism. Torvald Helmer, of the household, cut figure of charm and bourgeois respectability. His tailored suit and polished demeanor serving as outward manifestation of social standing, professional success. Nora Helmer, his devoted embodies an epitome of Victorian femininity, demure, docile, and dedicated to the welfare of family. When we look at the very setup of the family, a beautiful Victorian family, wife, Nora Helmer, the protagonist, Torvald Helmer, and their three children make an ideal family. They love each other. Their interest towards this Norwegian culture is very much portrayed in the first act. But beneath the veneer of domestic bliss lurks simmering tensions and unspoken resentments. Shrouded in the shadow of victory and social expectations, the dynamics between Torvald and Nora, once perceived as an epitome of marital harmony, are fraught with underlying strains and unmet desires. Despite their outward display of affection, the relationship is characterized by a subtle imbalance of power and control, rooted in the prevailing gender norms of the time. When we look at the first act, we could see Torvald as being an ideal husband, and Nora Helm, who always submits to be submissive to her husband, loyal, gentle. When we look at the character of Torvald, he is a typical male chauvinist, dominant, who always think women should always be put down. And women in the Victorian times self-submit, submissive, and they only feel the very role of womanhood is to serve the family, contributing towards the family success, maintaining harmony, and raising children is the only aim of women then. So in the first act, we could see Nora being a very loving wife to her husband. When she was called by names as Songbird, Skylark, she feels happy towards her husband Torvald for calling her so. But when we look at the characterization of Torvald, who calls her and treats her like a dog, like a kid, rather than a wife, because he always feels that women are incapable of anything. In this perspective, he expects women are incapable of holding any things. Any decision should be taken by the man of the family, head of the family, and women are not supposed to be indulged into anything. Why is this character of Torvald Helmer highlighted in this way? It's revealed in the next act. Nora, despite her facade of contentment, harbor, there is a secret that threatens to unravel the carefully constructed facade of her existence. Her clandestine activities and clandestine dealings concealed beneath the guise of innocence and frivolity. This serves as a poignant reminder of the constraints imposed upon women within the patriarchal system of the society. Why we call this a patriarchal type of society? Whenever we look at Torvald, he even locks his letterbox, will not allow his wife to do anything. He just feels that he's the head of the family and he can carry anything and everything. And Torvald is basically a person, a male chauvinist in this patriarchal society of 19th century Victorian era. He feels that women are subjected to serve the family and should maintain a low key, shouldn't work because there are many legal limitations which will be coming in the next act for women. He always feels that his wife, he loves his wife a lot, but always feels that she is not capable of doing anything without his support. He even calls her a spendthrift because he feels that she's spending a lot of money. There is a reason behind this very reason of Nora spending money, which were given for household goods. So when we look at the domesticity that unravels, Helmer household stands as a testament to the complexity of human relationships and the fragile nature of societal constructs. Within the walls, the clash between appearance and reality, conformity and individuality, serves as a microcosm of the tumultuous forces that shape the human experience. When we talk about all these things, we could see which in the Act 1, where the family is praised as an epitome of harmony, a blessed family, an ideal family, later becomes what they really are. When we look at the character of Mrs. Lynn, Nora's old friend, her character in this play adds more value. The hardships endured by Lynn made her become an economic independent person. The sacrifice made by women like Lynn, herself and society dictates her status in the society. When we look at Lynn, she faced a lot of criticism from the society because she was a working person. She worked. Being a widow without children is also one reason she was looked down. Because back in the Victorian era, people like Nora, a typical household name, Nora believed that Lynn was left with no money, no husband, and no kids. This makes Nora feel sorry for Lynn. But the reality is different. Mrs. Lynn backstory. In the backstory, Ibsen introduced the theme of economic independence and sacrifices women made within the patriarchal society. The subtle hints of financial strains and Nora's clandestine action to secure money foreshadow the unraveling of secrets and tensions that will define the subsequent acts. When we talk about Lynch, who meets Nora exactly after 10 years, losing her husband and was left penniless. When Lynch shows up, Nora at the first go couldn't recognize her because Lynn became very lean, pale, and Nora extends her sorry for not recognizing Lynn. And she also extends her sorry for the condition of Lynn. Because when Lynn says, I married my husband, I was widowed with no children. And later, I married my husband because I felt leaving the person I loved only to marry this wealthy man was to support my sick mother and my two young brothers. So this character of Lynn talks about the sacrifice of women, sacrificing of self, her life. But when Nora asked her, did your husband leave any wealth for you? Lynn says that, I thought he was rich. He said he was rich. So women totally relied on what men said, and her decision cost the life of Lynn. But when we look at Nora and Lynn as two different contrasts of society, in one way, Nora is self-sufficient. Her husband works as a manager of a bank. He got promoted recently. They're financially in a well-settled position. So she feels that she could afford whatever she wants. Apart from that, even she thinks that Lynn doesn't have a husband to take care, kids to support. So she was left empty-handed in this world. In this perspective, when Lynn asked Nora's help in getting a job in Torvald's bank, Nora is happy enough to help her friend getting a job in Torvald's bank. So overall in the Act 1, exploration of gender roles, societal expectations, and the facade of domestic bliss, laying the groundwork for the conflict and revelations to come. So when we look at Act 2, in Act 2, the tension simmering beneath the surface of Helmer's household comes to a head as secrets are exposed and the relationships are tested. The arrival of Nils Krogstad, who looks as a disgraced employee at Torvald's bank, ignites a central conflict of the play. As he blackmails and threatens Nora, was carefully presented and constructed. The interaction between Nora, Torvald, and Krogstad intensified, revealing the complexity of power dynamics, morality, and personal agency. Nora's desperate attempts to maintain control and preserve her husband's esteem clash with Krogstad's demands for retribution, leading to a crescendo of suspense and anticipation. So meanwhile, when Mrs. Lind rekindled relationship with Krogstad adds another layer of intrigue as their intertwined fates collide with Nora's, highlighting the interconnectedness of their struggle against societal expectations and personal desires. The loved one which Lind left for a wealthy person is none other than Krogstad, who is a classmate of Torvald basically, but works in Torvald's bank in a lower position. When we look at this, Krogstad is portrayed as an ill-mannered person who blackmails Nora for what will be disclosed in the next act. He blackmails Nora because Torvald was under the impression of removing Krogstad from his job for the illegal measures he is doing in the bank. So Torvald thinks the status and reputation shouldn't be pulled down by supporting Krogstad. But when Krogstad comes to Nora Helmer and says, if you don't tell your husband to hold my position, I will reveal your secret. What is that? And when Krogstad blackmails her, apart from holding my job, you tell Torvald to give me a promotion. So in this perspective, Nora was very tensed. She runs to Torvald without disclosing the blackmailing issue. She requests Torvald to give job for Krogstad. And this is when Torvald thinks, what would people think of me if I support a person with no morality? By this time, we can understand that Torvald is more interested in his status and societal reputation rather than accepting to his wife or talking about the situation. So we just look at this and we could understand from this act that Krogstad and Lent are in a relationship prior to Lent's marriage. Act 2 serves as a dramatic fulcrum of A Doll's House, propelling towards a thematic exploration of identity and pursuit of truth. It, as the consequences of deception and societal norms comes to fruition. Nora's confrontation with Torvald exposes the fault lines in the marriage and challenges the patriarchal foundation on which their relationship is built. We can understand that the relationship between Nora and Torvald is never true. Though Nora loved her husband to the fullest, Torvald also loved. There were certain constraints that come across the marriage. Here comes the issue of trust. Torvald's reaction to Krogstad's letter. The very reason behind Krogstad blackmailing Nora was when Torvald was extremely ill, he was suggested to take to Italy for a better medication. The financial conditions of Helmer's family was very low then. So Nora decided to take some financial aid, but the legal system was so tight in those days that women were not allowed to borrow money or take loans without the concern or signature of their husband or father. The dominant society gave many rules where women were not even allowed to do anything. Even if they wish to do any business, any financial contributions, the support of father, big brothers, or husband is very much required. In this perspective, what Nora did is she forged her father's signature to get a loan. And the loan was being given by Krogstad. So what happens here is when we look at the character of Krogstad, when it comes to his job, of course, over a period of time, when Nora was called a spendthrift for spending too much money, she's trying to save every penny to repay the loan back. That is when Torvald called her a spendthrift. But Nora was very much determined in repaying, and she almost repaid most of the loan. When this comes to Krogstad, Krogstad said, if you don't help me in retaining my job, I will send the letter, the loan letter, to your husband. Nora was very much petrified. She couldn't take it anymore. The character of Krogstad was antagonist in the novel in one way, but his true self was revealed at the end of the act. When Krogstad was behind Nora, Nora away as she couldn't face her husband anymore. She knew what Torvald would be, what he is, because he was very much into societal reputation, and he will definitely not spare. In this perspective, Krogstad even went to Nora and he tried to pull her out of the decision of committing suicide. So, in one way, we cannot say Krogstad is an antagonist or an ill-mannered person, but he went to prioritize between his reputation or his family. He's a single man with kids. So he chose to blackmail Nora only to save his job so that his kids will not suffer. When contrasting the characters of Torvald and Krogstad, we understand Torvald prefers reputation over family, whereas Krogstad prefers family over reputation. So this is how the real self of individuals is unmasked going forward. So in this perspective, when Lind, who steps in, we could see her contribution towards the play in a very positive manner. So though she was looked down upon by Torvald and other members of the society as a selfish woman, she later realizes and extends her hand to Krogstad in helping his children and staying loyal to him. Krogstad then sends back the letter to Torvald Helmer, Nora, revealing her of her tensions. But initially, when Krogstad sent the letter was lying in the letterbox. We could see how Nora Helmer was tensed, petrified. If her husband sees the letter, that would be the end of everything. But even the keys of the letterbox are with Torvald. By this, you can understand how Torvald wants to take control of everything. And what are the words he used when he realized? He says that you are a woman and you did this all with no morality. Even Nora's father also is said to be spendthrift by Torvald, and you get the legacy from your father of being a spendthrift, and you're doing this. He couldn't take it that his wife went against the societal norms of borrowing money from someone else. He even restricts her from talking to the children. This is the point where Nora realizes she was literally stripped in the marriage. She was in a cage where she was not given any self-identity and respect. But when Krogstad sends her paper back and was going forward with Lind, Torvald then accepts Nora, saying that even though he doesn't wish Nora to stay back, he just feels for the sake of the society, he could hold Nora back. That is the point when Nora realizes her quest for identity, self-liberation, self-identity. The whole story is set back in a Victorian era where women were trapped in this marriage issue. When we talk about the characterization, we might be wondering why Nora Helmer in the very first act was shown to be a very pregnant woman who resembles the Victorian women, who is self-sufficient, who loves to be guarded under the umbrella of her husband's supervision. She is very charming wife. She's a beautiful mother. She enjoys the company of her friends, husband, kids. She's very playful. Even the taunts thrown by Torvald were taken with much affection. She's very contented with her life. She's very pampered. She's patronized. She's coddled. She initially conforms to the societal expectations of femininity. She loves to be an ideal Victorian woman, submissive, doting and dependent on her husband. She was very much dependent on her father before marriage. So she doesn't find much difference being submissive to her husband. When Torvald, her husband, calls her silly girl, she feels very happy. She takes it with much appreciation. But in Act 2, we realize that she's not a silly girl. She comprehends the financial aspects of the debt incurred by taking out only to protect her husband, is the proof of her ability. Her account of years she has been working consistently to pay the debts proves that she's very good with her financial ambitions, and she's very good at resolving issues. Furthermore, the fact that she was prepared to disobey the law at the cost of her husband's health. When Torvald discovers that Nora has been lying and forging documents, his harsh and self-centered serves as the last straw that causes Nora to obey. There is one point in everyone's life that you take that step. However, Nora demonstrates that she's aware that her life serves as a last. Her life basically serves her true self. Little but significant, she defies Torvald in the way like doing anything he likes. As the story progresses, Nora becomes more conscious of the reality of the situation, and she realizes the importance of being rebellious. She eventually decides to leave her husband and kids in order to become independent. So basically, when we look at the characterization of Nora, it was curated in such a way that being rebellious or a woman being feminist or rebellious cannot happen overnight. When one realizes one's potential, one will be confident enough to mule a marriage and walk out of it. But this act of Nora Helmer in 19th century is an act of rebellion. Initially in theaters, all the playwrights, dramas were portrayed only taking into consideration the happenings around. But women being rebellious marked, or it is a redundant incident in the history of literature. So Ibsen's idea of self-revelation, self-liberty, quest for identity is revealed through Nora. When we talk about Torvald Helmer, he is a bank manager by profession. He is an embodiment of patriarchal ideas, and he always treats Nora with love, but she's always an inferior creature to him. He always calls her to be a squirrel, a lark. He is very much obsessed with societal status, appearance, and conventional. He always agrees that the man's duty in a marriage is to lead and protect his spouse, and treats Nora like a daughter, obviously enjoying the fact that she needs his advice. He uses certain quotes in the play. A home that depends on loans and debt is not beautiful because it is not free. He gives his instructions saying that a house should always be freed. He even instructs his wife on how to dress for a costume party. You know that I have often wished you were facing some terrible danger so that I could risk life and live, risk everything for you. He fancies to be with his wife. He expects his wife to be in danger so that he could prove his love to her. This possesses Nora to think about what sort of husband she has. Torvald is acutely aware of how other people see him and how he is regarded in the neighborhood. He always puts his reputation before his wife's wishes, as evidenced by his response to Nora's request that Krogstad be kept on at the office. He says that I'll become a laughing stock before the entire staff. When we talk about this man's concern is maintaining the appearance both at home, and he also insists that Nora should be a stay-at-home mother, and he claims that you destroyed the happiness and you will never be permitted to raise the kids of what you have been doing. So when we look at Torvald, basically, he was made in such a way, like a typical Victorian patriarchal husband, who always think women are capable of nothing. They could do nothing. They're not capable of anything. Whatever should be done, even from dressing to cooking, everything should be under the control of husband. So the other main female character is Christine Lind, or Mrs. Lind, who was a childhood friend of Nora. So she resembles a range of fulfilling lives that women can lead without the support of their husband. We could see a contrast between Nora and Christine, a counterbalance. So Nora feels sorry for Christine while Christine is always self-sufficient. In order to support her sick mother and younger brothers, Christine first turned down Krog's proposal. Then she worked for long hours after her former husband's financial collapsed, much like the hundreds of thousands of women that Nora lists for Torvald. She also became a typical household wife working for her husband. Torvald and other members of the genteel society of the Victorian era found Mrs. Lind boring because men-dominated society cannot accept a self-sufficient woman. They even call her selfish because she's obliged to be always on the outlook for chances to survive, and because she has spent a large portion of her life in hardship. She also described herself as becoming bitter over a period of time. When we talk about the next character, Nils Krogstad, who is marked as a disgraced bank employee blackmailing Nora in securing his job at the bank. He is portrayed as a morally ambiguous, driven by his desire for redemption and social acceptance. But despite his questionable actions, Krogstad ultimately emerges as a complex character who challenges the audience preconceived notions of villainy and redemption. Krogstad has compassion for Nora despite his harsh willingness to let her suffer. So when we look at Krogstad's good intentions by giving her letter back, and when we look at Krogstad, he says that I want to take care of my children. They can't be left like that. So he is okay with people call him a blackmailer, person with no morality, a villain, but he always put his family first. Unlike Torvald, priorities keep changing. We have one more important character, Dr. Rank. Dr. Rank is basically a family friend of Helmer who suffers from a terminal illness. But he was treated as friend, a family friend of Helmer's, who was often invited by the Helmers. When Rank came to Nora, he confesses his feelings to her. He stands as a symbolic representation of moral decay and societal hypocrisy. Because Dr. Rank was suffering from a severe illness that will draw him to death. So when we talk about these characters, we have the characters of Anne, who also plays an inevitable role in the drama. Miss Anne is the caretaker of Nora's kids. She was even the caretaker of Nora when she was young. So Anne had to leave her family to take care of her financial constraints. She took care of Nora, now Nora's children. So she could financially support her family. Her presence, apart from her presence, she always felt that financially supporting the family is more important than physically being present. So this also talks about Anne as a self-sufficient and self-sacrificing woman in the story. When we talk about the gender roles in particular, the stereotypical gender household of Helmer shows that both male and female characters are suffering. in their own way because of the societal expectations. The constructive natures of gender role is especially apparent for the main female character in the play, Nora and Christine. Women at this time were expected to get married, have children, and stay at home to tend the children and husband. But when women have a job and earn money, like Nora copying lines in secret, it was like being a man. Women had very few opportunities to make money for themselves, relying on husbands and fathers to provide for their needs. Without a father or older brothers, Christine sought a rich husband, leaving behind man she truly loved in order to be financially secure. If you look at this, the expectations to stay home, raise children, obey their husband, women missed a lot of opportunities, often needing legal consent from the husbands to perform simple business. So, societal expectations carved a lot of characters, carved the characterization of Nora and Torvald in their day-to-day lives. In this play, we could also see men suffer in one way or others. Though Torvald clearly enjoys his societal expectation, he couldn't love his wife beyond this because of his manly independence. He can't receive help from anyone, especially a woman. So that is the reason he is ready to abandon his wife. He decides that better to lie to her husband. Knowing the fact, knowing the character of Torvald, she's ready to sacrifice her life and take action against legal times only to save her husband. As a result, Torvald lost Nora, and the most feared thing of Torvald, he became the subject of gossip as a failed man. Societal issues, when it comes to societal issues, the reputation hinge on the reputations of their parents. So this is one important factor that was discussed in the play, right? So when we talk about Dr. Rank's father had a very bad reputation. He is a man who enjoyed physical pleasures to the damaging extent of passing on disease to his son that ultimately resulted in the death of Dr. Rank. So though Rank is an upstanding member of the society, he is punished for his father's misdeed, and the ultimate price for it is death. Likewise, Torvald also says Nora's ability to wheedle money out of him is in the blood. In Torvald's eyes, she has inherited her father's reputation as a careless spender. Once Torvald discovers the truth about the loan and forgery, he further declares that Nora's want of principle is all her father's influence. So, when we talk about the aspect of marriage, Nora represents a completely conventional marriage at the beginning of the play. She stays at home, tends to family, children, supports them, everything. In order to keep their conventional marriage afloat, Nora lies to Torvald at every turn. She not only dishonest about silly things, but also enormous things as well. Like the fact she secured the loan only to save her husband. These lies come to light, and Torvald completely breaks down and drives Nora away. He is a conventional husband and feels that he has the right to control his wife. He is astonished when Nora says that it's nice of her to do what he wants. This perceived right to control is another reason their marriage falls apart. Torvald must control every aspect of his household, even of his letterbox, but he fails to realize that his control comes at a price. As long as exerts control over Nora, they can never be equal, and this cannot be true union or partnership. So when we talk about the role of why Nora's character was designed in such a way, because of the legal limitations that made Ibsen think in curating the character of Nora. If you look at the courts, like it was necessary, he should have no idea what a dangerous condition they were in. It was necessary. He should have no idea how ill his little bird had been. He must know anything about it. Men are also heartless, but now he has gone away again, thank God. So when you look at Nora's words, reveal her sense of desperation and the length she feels compelled to go to protect her family. She goes to an extra mile against her husband's will of saving her husband. She believes that her husband Torvald would not understand the gravity of these financial situations. It is highlighting the lack of agency she experienced as a woman in her marriage. Initially, Nora admits, yes, Torvald, I can't get along a bit without your help. So she adds in the societal norms and admits her submissiveness to her husband. When Torvald says, my little songbird must never do that again, the must have a clean beak to chip with, no falsehood. So Torvald, when highlights Nora to be a decorative piece, a submissive figure, and a primary role in entertaining and pleasing him. So, when we talk about all these things, we understand that social expectations and conformity played a major role in the lives of Nora and Torvald Helm. You don't know what it is to be in love, married to a man who is capable of everything for yourself, who would gladly work and endure poverty and hardships and trouble, who would even give him life for you. This is said in Act 1. Nora's idealization of Torvald and her belief in his unquestionable devotion reflects societal expectations that women should depend on their husband for emotional well-being and financial support. So the stereotypes, self-sacrificing, and being a protective husband reinforces her own subordinate position within the marriage. The very theme of realism is very much portrayed in drama. So realism is in Ibsen often credited with modern drama. His play depicted ordinary people in everyday situation, addressing social issues and psychological conflicts within honesty and depth. And it stands as a quintessential example of realistic approach portraying the struggles of a woman trapped in suffocating marriage. A Doll's House is an example of realism in theater. Superficially, it's more like a realistic prose drama. When we talk about realism in the theater, which was around 1870, is rebellion against the very conventional theater of the time. Plays before that time often were involved in putting characters in situations unlikely to happen in real life, and characters sometimes spoke directly to audience through monologues and soliloquies. Realists saw these older plays as artificial and believed that having characteristics face real life challenges would be more compelling. So Henrik Ibsen's play put ordinary characters through real life struggles, and the character speaks in sentences rather in rhyming verse. It is to get connected with common man. Many critics consider Ibsen the father of realistic prose drama. His plays revolutionized theater with characters and settings that were actually relatable to the audience. Ibsen further used his realistic dramas to question the moral standards in the society. Social commentary has become a staple of the realistic genre that has pioneered. So when we talk about this Doll's House, coming to the conclusion, it ends with the Nora's. When we have gone through all the three acts, when she was questioned of her integrity, morality, self-revelation, she walks out. Whether she walking out of her marriage, leaving her husband and kids, is a correct move or not is left to the audience. Ibsen's style of judging the character of Nora was left to the audience. It ends with a powerful statement: I must stand quite alone if I am to understand myself and everything about. This line encapsulates Nora's realization of need for independence and self-understanding. So throughout the play, we could see Nora experiencing a profound awakening of her self-identity and desires, realizing that she has been only living according to the societal norms and expectations rather than her true self. So this quote signifies Nora's determination to embark on a journey of self-discovery, even if it means standing alone against societal norms and expectations. By ending the play with the declaration, Ibsen emphasizes Nora's newfound sense of agency and autonomy. It reinforces the play's central theme of individuality, self-awareness, and the pursuit of personal freedom. Additionally, Nora's assertion challenges the audience to reflect on the importance of self-understanding and the courage required to break free societal constraints in order to live authentically. So this is a quick understanding of Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. The very title symbolizes women being treated as dolls, both at the family level, under their father's rule, or as a doll under husband's rule. Even Nora, at one point in the novel, in the last act, admits it clearly that she says, I was treated as a doll by my father, and the same legacy was carried by you. I'm a doll in a cage, a doll's house. So this is a quick review of Doll's House, Henrik Ibsen's pioneer novel, and the initial feministic novel. And hope I was able to give a clear idea, an overview of the small act with the characters, characterizations, central theme that were made part and parcel of this drama. And during the centennial celebrations of Henrik Ibsen recently, Doll's House was performed once again in the theater and is the most highly performed theater in the era. And I thank Akshay for giving me a very good platform to showcase my ideas, share my views on one of the finest novels of Henrik Ibsen.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, an insightful exploration of A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen, expertly dissected by Dr. Swathi Koppolu. We have journeyed through the complexities of societal norms, gender roles, and individual autonomy as depicted in this timeless classic. Dr. Swati's keen observations and scholarly insights have shed light on the enduring relevance of Ibsen's work in today's world. We have been reminded of the importance of challenging conventions, seeking truth, and asserting one's own identity, themes that resonate across cultures and generations. As we conclude this episode of Talk the Book, I encourage you to continue exploring the rich tapestry of literature and to engage in meaningful discussions that enrich our understanding of the human experience. A big thanks to our esteemed guest, Dr. Swathi Koppolu, for sharing her expertise, and to all our viewers for tuning in. Until next Friday for the next Talk the Book program, keep reading, keep learning, and keep talking the book. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.